Can I ask you a question, Jim?
Mm-hmm.
You smoke, right?
Yeah.
Were you smoking when you said you better than Nas?
I might have been a little bit.
This Jim Jones Nas wasn't even a debate. Nas is a legend. Nas put in work. Nas's lyrics.
Man, I didn't know how many people love Nas.
Did a rapper from Harlem really just claim he's bigger than one of hip-hop's all-time greats? It sounds unbelievable, but that's exactly what happened when Jim Jones dared to compare himself to Nas. In a move that shocked fans everywhere, Jim Jones, yes, of Dipset fame, boldly suggested he's more relevant than Nas, even implying his catalog outshines the Queensbridge legends. The hip-hop world went haywire. Was Jim serious, trolling, or simply marketing genius? Today, we're diving deep into the shocking truth behind Jim Jones's comments about Nas, and revealing why he decided to drop Nas's name in the first place. No slow intros here, we're jumping straight into the drama. It all started with a seemingly innocent podcast segment, one that nobody expected to blow up. On a small show, a 22-year-old hip-hop podcaster from New Jersey was asked a curious question: who's more relevant to you, Jim Jones or Nas? For this young host, the answer was Jim Jones. He felt Jim's music and presence meant more to his current life than Nas's. That one opinion lit the match. The clip of this statement hit the internet and spread like wildfire. Suddenly, a Jim Jones versus Nas debate was trending everywhere. People were bewildered. How could anyone even compare the two? Jim Jones caught wind of it, and he'd later insist, "I didn't start it."
I didn't start it. They asked me how I felt about what was said about me on another platform from some other people. You know, that's something I'm not a troublemaker.
This all came from that one viral clip. But whether he started it or not, Jim was about to finish it in his own way. And he didn't stay quiet for long. With the internet buzzing, Jim Jones stepped into the fray to make his case, and he did it with zero hesitation. Appearing on Fat Joe and Jadakiss's Joe and Jada podcast, Jim Jones dropped a bombshell. He straight up declared he was a better rapper than Nas. If that sounds brazen, it was. Jim didn't stop there. He went on to challenge the stats, urging everyone to check the receipts. "Go pull up Nas's Billboard entries, then pull up my Billboard entries," Jim boasted. In Jim's view, the numbers would show he had more hits and chart presence than Nas over the years. It was a stunning claim, almost unthinkable to hip-hop purists. After all, Nas isn't just any rapper, he's a certified legend. The room fell almost silent for a moment. You could practically hear hip-hop heads gasping across the internet. Jim was confident, even defiant. He basically said, "Look, I love Nas, but if you stack my track record against anyone else's, I've been spanking a lot of them."
If you want to go to the Billboard entries, pull up Nas' Billboard entries, and pull up my Billboard entries.
I'm standing around Nas right now rapping. Everybody knows that.
It was the ultimate bold move, and Jim knew exactly what he was doing. By throwing down this gauntlet, he ensured one thing: everyone would be talking about Jim Jones. And they did. The backlash was immediate and intense. The reaction to Jim's braggadocious comparison was swift and explosive. The moment those words hit social media, fans went into a frenzy. How dare Jim Jones, a rapper with a couple of big hits and reality TV fame, think he's on Nas's level? On Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, people were roasting Jim left and right. Some called the claim outright delusional, thinking it had to be a joke or publicity stunt. Little did they know, they weren't entirely wrong about that. Hip-hop forums lit up with fiery takes. Nas is on the Mount Rushmore of rap. Jim isn't even in the conversation, one commenter blasted. Another outraged fan wrote, "Nas is a legend, a status Jim will never have. Sit down." And that was one of the politer comments. Others were less kind, basically shredding Jim's rap skills and career. A particularly harsh critic scoffed that Nas stands with Pac and Biggie among the greats, while Jim Jones is a talentless nobody just trying to get attention and streams.
Jim Jones was never better than Nas. Jim Jones will never be better than Nas. And this is coming from somebody that's not a Nas fan. I love Dipset. I love the Diplomats. I love Bird Gang. But we not about to start rewriting history because Jim Jones got confidence. Listen, I love Capo, but Capo was never that good of a rapper. When Jim Jones got ballin', we was happy for him because we like Capo. We was like, yo, he got one, but he was never that good of a rapper.
Ouch. The consensus was clear. Jim Jones crossed a line. Even fellow artists and media personalities weighed in. Many older heads in hip-hop felt this was borderline disrespect to Nas's legacy, an unforgivable clout chase. You could feel the anger and disbelief in barbershops and comment sections alike. Yet, as the memes flew and the think pieces rolled out, Jim Jones seemed remarkably unbothered. In fact, he was smirking through it. Why? Because all this outrage was part of the plan, or, at least, a risk he was willing to take. And if you thought the backlash was crazy, wait till you hear how Jim responded to it. Facing a tidal wave of criticism, most people might backtrack or apologize. Not Jim Jones. Instead, he went on a media tour, most notably sitting down with legendary radio host Angie Martinez on her IRL podcast to address the whole Nas controversy head-on. What he revealed was as surprising as his initial claim.
In that moment, though, that you're saying this thing with Nas, do you know this is going to be a clip?
100%.
Yeah.
Jim basically said, "Yes, I stirred the pot. On purpose." According to Jim, this was all a calculated move in the modern social media game. "I know how to go viral. This is easy," he told Angie with a shrug. Jim broke it down. In 2025's hip-hop landscape, attention is currency. We're in a community where everything goes viral and turns into a revenue stream, he explained. To him, all the outrage and debate meant more eyeballs on Jim Jones. "I'm on everybody's Explore page. One click away from making me some money," Jim said, almost laughing at how well it was working. He openly admitted that controversy was part of his marketing strategy. By getting people riled up, he was driving streams, profile views, and relevance for himself. Jim Jones basically pulled back the curtain and said, "Yep, I did it for the clout, and I'd do it again." It was a candid confession that many artists would never dare make publicly. But Jim wasn't done. He addressed the Nas fans' outrage too, sounding equal parts amused and impressed. "Man, I didn't know how many people loved Nas though. I'm watching people go batch crazy, like goddamn," he remarked, still somewhat in disbelief at the scale of the backlash.
Man, I didn't know how many people love Nas.
Jim acknowledged that hip-hop fans ride hard for their icons, just like he used to go hard for his favorites. "That's what the game was built on," he said, meaning the passion, the debates, the rivalries. In other words, from Jim's perspective, he was just fueling the competitive spirit of hip-hop. And he certainly wasn't apologizing. If anything, he was enjoying the chaos. But even while doubling down, Jim took a moment to clarify his respect for Nas, and this part is crucial to understanding his mindset. Despite all the bravado, Jim Jones didn't actually come out and say Nas is trash or anything, not at all. In fact, Jim has repeatedly stated he's a fan of Nas. I was a superior Nas fan. I love Nas," he said on other occasions. The truth is, Nas's place in hip-hop is untouchable, and Jim knows it. On Angie's podcast, amid the controversy, Jim gave Nas his flowers, indirectly but clearly. He talked about being a fan of hip-hop legends and understanding why people were so protective of Nas. And Nas is the kind of legend people will defend with their lives. We're talking about the man who made Illmatic, who many consider the greatest rap album ever. Nas has influenced generations, won a Grammy as recently as 2021, and at 49 years old was still dropping acclaimed albums and selling out shows. Jim didn't try to deny any of that. In his own way, Jim was acknowledging that Nas is a giant. That's why the stunt worked. He basically admitted that if someone had tried to compare him to one of their idols, he might be furious too. So, as much as Jim played the antagonist in the story, he wasn't truly attacking Nas's legacy. He even said he never meant to provoke or insult Nas personally. He was defending his own status, not tearing down Nas's. It's a fine line, but an important one in his mind. Interestingly, through all this, Nas himself stayed completely silent. The Queensbridge legend didn't tweet, didn't rant, didn't drop a diss track, nothing. And that silence spoke volumes.
I'm in the game still rapping at a high capacity. If Nas wants to smoke, come in the booth. I will rap
He don't want
circles
no
around.
smoke. He enjoying that 150 million, 200 million. He done
Okay
made.
then, so then leave me alone while I'm on the field.
You was effing with him.
I'm
He
on
wasn't
the
bothering
field.
you.
Nas acted like a man so secure in his legacy that he didn't even feel the need to dignify the noise with a response. We'll touch more on Nas's reaction, or lack of one, in a moment. The key takeaway here is that even Jim implicitly conceded, Nas is a legend, full stop. But in the social media era, even legends get pulled into drama, and that brings us to the bigger picture of this incident. Jim Jones's viral comments open up a huge conversation in hip-hop about relevance, respect, and the new rules of fame. In one corner, you have legacy. Artists like Nas who earned respect over decades, whose names are synonymous with greatness. In the other corner, you have clout and relevance, the currency of now, measured in views, trends, and memes. Jim basically turned this clash into a spectacle. He's a savvy veteran who realized that in 2025, to stay hot, you sometimes have to make noise online. It's a playbook we've seen before. Remember a couple of years back when 21 Savage casually said Nas was not relevant anymore, just that he had a loyal fan base? Fans were livid. That uproar only died down when Nas and 21 surprised everyone with a collaborative song to show there was no beef. The lesson? Mentioning Nas's relevance is guaranteed to get people talking.
But it's cool. I know that I'm great at a lot of things that people would love to be great at. I accepted that a long time ago in life.
Nas's name carries weight. It represents an entire era of hip-hop. As one observer noted amid the Jim Jones drama, rappers invoke Nas's name precisely because he is the bar for relevance in a cultural sense. Jim understood this. He admitted to Angie Martinez that he was intentionally playing the social media game for attention and algorithm boosts. In his words, viral equals revenue. And he's not wrong. The more people argued about him, the more his streaming numbers and profile likely ticked up. It's a strategy more and more artists and influencers use. Stir controversy, then capitalize on the curiosity. However, it's a dangerous game too. While Jim did gain attention, he also risked looking foolish or disrespectful. The older generation of hip-hop found his stunt tasteless. Some saw it as clout chasing at the expense of a pioneer's legacy. On the other hand, some younger or more marketing-minded folks shrugged and said, "Welcome to 2025. This is just how the game is played." After all, as Jim said, "I know how to turn my negatives into a positive," implying that even bad press can be flipped into something good, like streams or brand deals. This section of our story shows a real culture clash. Is hip-hop's new school too focused on virality, or is the old school too stuck in the past?
But listen, Nas was nice when I was in high school.
If I get upset, it's gonna be a real problem.
I'm rapping at a high level. You better check my stats, bro.
How crazy is that? Because in my era, you know what I'm saying, Nas is like a god.
Jim Jones versus Nas became the perfect case study. And it all leads to what happened afterward and what we can learn from it. So, what was the end result of Jim Jones's audacious move? In some ways, Jim got exactly what he wanted. For weeks, his name was ringing out everywhere. Breakfast Club hosts debated him, YouTube podcasts dissected his claims, Twitter had a field day. He was, without question, the center of attention in hip-hop chatter. For an artist without a huge current hit, that's valuable. He even joked on Instagram that going viral is just part of the job these days. "I understand today's game, so yeah, I'm gonna get up here and say whatever and make business off of it," he wrote. True to form, Jim leveraged the moment, promoting his new music, spotlighting his artists, and reminding everyone that he's still here, still relevant by his own definition. And Nas seemingly paid it no mind publicly. He never acknowledged Jim's comments directly. No angry tweets, no scathing verse in retaliation, nothing. Instead, Nas stayed on his grind, releasing music. He's been on a creative tear with his King's Disease series and other projects, and even expanding into ventures like tech investments and business. At one point, fans joked that Nas's only response was dropping a big announcement, like a concert or a new venture, as if to say, "I'm doing just fine." Essentially, Nas let his legacy speak for him. The episode came and went, and Nas's status remained untouchable, perhaps even strengthened, as a new generation was reminded of his greatness through all the debates. Meanwhile, Jim's reputation, well, it's complicated. He succeeded in getting attention, but a lot of that attention was people clowning him or calling him delusional. Some critics dubbed him Jim Delula Jones for making such comparisons. Others, however, respected the honesty of his hustle, saying Jim was just being real about the entertainment aspect of rap. And interestingly, Jim Jones later made a striking remark. He claimed that thanks to him, Nas had a viral moment like never before. In Jim's eyes, he might have done Nas a favor by making him trend on every blog and timeline, a tongue-in-cheek claim, no doubt. In the aftermath, there were no real winners or losers in the traditional sense, but there was plenty to reflect on about how hip-hop works nowadays. Let's wrap this up with what we've learned from this wild saga. The Jim Jones versus Nas controversy turned out to be far more than a petty beef or a clickbait headline. It became a mirror held up to hip-hop in the social media age. On one side, we have Nas, a living legend whose influence is beyond question. On the other, Jim Jones, a hustler and entertainer who found a new way to keep himself in the conversation. Jim's decision to use Nas's name was a high-risk, high-reward play. It was disrespectful in the eyes of many, but it was also, undeniably, effective in grabbing attention. He knowingly traded a bit of his reputation to spark a discussion that put him back in the spotlight. It's the kind of move that makes you ask, is this what it takes to stay relevant now? In Jim's case, he bet that the benefits of virality would outweigh the backlash, and he's content with the outcome, as he turned those clicks into cash, streams, and headlines. Nas, for his part, didn't even need to say a word to reaffirm his greatness. The entire hip-hop community did that for him. If anything, the episode showed that Nas's legacy is so strong that even a cloud of controversy can't put a dent in it. In fact, it only made the culture rally around him more. So, what's the final takeaway? Perhaps it's this: hip-hop has always been competitive, but the battlefield has changed. It's not just about who has the best rhymes or the most classic albums, it's also about who can command attention in a noisy, algorithm-driven world. Jim Jones reminded us that for some artists, controversy is a strategy and clout is a currency. But he also inadvertently reminded everyone why artists like Nas are held sacred in the first place. In the end, Jim's stunt got us all talking and thinking. Love it or hate it, it forced a conversation about how we value our legends versus our trending stars. So, was Jim Jones out of line, or was he just playing the game by its new rules? That's for each fan to decide. One thing's for sure, in this era of viral moments and non-stop content, the line between marketing and madness is getting thinner. And the Jim Jones versus Nas saga will be remembered as a prime example of what happens when clout chasing meets hip-hop royalty. The only question now is, who'll be the next to test a legend's legacy for a moment in the spotlight, and will it be worth it?